Corey, before I hit record, can you tell me the best millionaire making brands that you have in home franchise concepts?
Uh, Lance, I think you already hit record.
Oh, I did. Sorry. Corey, hi everybody. Welcome. Another fabulous episode of Franchise Fit Podcast, formerly Ion Franchising.
Finish.
Corey Benish is my guest. Corey is the president and CEO of Home Franchise Concepts. Up next,
They were just actually awarded this year the Innovation Award for Franchise Innovation of the Year.
Are you going to be getting to 3,000 franchisees with budget blinds today? I mean, tell me that story.
When you think about just good franchising in general, it's got to be scalable and repeatable for us.
This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lance. Great to be here.
Well, people got a little preview of what we're going to talk about, but let's switch it up for now. What makes franchising, Corey, a smarter investment than, let's say, acquiring an existing business, especially in today's market?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting times, but I love the franchising concept and the framework, right? I think franchising is a smart choice for a few reasons. One, it is a proven model. You have years of backed experience. When you think about, for example, home franchise concepts, we've been in this business for 30 years. And so we've had the chance to sort of make the mistakes, learn and refine the model. And I think franchising brings you right out of the gate, particularly as a first-time entrepreneur, those proven models, those proven ways of operating a business, and proven practices around how to market, how to support, how to deliver the product and experience. And when you compare that to example of acquiring a business, you don't have that same sort of understanding or certainty around that, right? You may have to inherit some of the decisions of the prior ownership. You may have some legacy overhang issues from a customer support standpoint that you have to deal with. And I think with franchising, you just get a really clean start in terms of what you want from a business. And then I think the support and the tools thereafter really help you grow and scale it from there out.
You know, Corey, I've noticed being in franchising over 30 years myself, that a lot of these acquisition targets that people are looking for, number one, they'll never get them, especially first-time business owners with no experience and not that much capital to invest typically. And everybody's looking for seller financing. But the reality is you're not going to get that concept. And if it's not a franchise and your staff quits, you're screwed. What do you have?
Yeah. You got to own or operate a business, you got to run, right?
And you got a bunch of debt you're trying to figure out. So partnership is a word that commonly pops up when it comes to franchising. And at Home Franchise Concepts, I know it's about franchise partnership. Tell me why that is central to your growth strategy specifically.
Well, it's a great question. I don't even know if it's central to our growth strategy. It is embedded in our DNA as an organization. And we think about partnership in the truest form of that from the very start of the conversation with a franchise candidate all the way through their whole life cycle with us. And so when you think about partnership, right, it's an incredibly important tenet for us because it really says, look, we're sitting shoulder to shoulder with our franchisees in the support of helping them provide that service or that product to the consumers, right? Because when they do that well, they win and we win as an organization. Our partners win, our associates win. So it really becomes this multiplying effect throughout the system. And so, it starts with making sure that they can make a great choice as a franchise candidate, right? We're not here to sell them a brand. We're not here to sell them a particular model. We're not here to sell them anything. We want them to feel good about, I love the brand. More importantly, I love the operating model, and I believe I can be successful at operating this business. And I think that's paramount to the start of the relationship because you're going to be in this journey for a long time. And so we really want to make sure that you're set up for success and that you have conviction around it. We carry that partnership modality into the training and onboarding process with scaled tools like our Home Franchise Concepts University, where we're really powering a better onboarding experience. And then it continues on, right? From support, from ongoing training, from collaboration and regional networking events. And we even invest in, for example, an annual international convention that we do where we bring all of our franchisees together across all of our brands so that they can collaborate, they can communicate with each other, they can network with each other for best practices, they can network with each other for next practices, and they can partner with our vendors and our vendor partners to see what's coming down the horizon for them.
With so many franchise platforms out there, you own a lot of brands. What makes home franchise concepts really stand out to prospects, to prospective franchisees, people not in the system yet?
It's a great question. So first, I mean, it starts with our franchisees and our brands, right? We've got some great brands in our portfolio, and I'm super proud of our franchisees, but also our team who leads them every single day. Just as a couple of examples for you, when you think about, for example, Kitchen Tune-Up and Bath Tune-Up, right? They were just actually awarded this year the Innovation Award for Franchise Innovation of the Year. So I think they're constantly thinking about forefront capabilities and how to innovate the concepts. When you look at our other brands, many of them are number one in their category. When you look at Entrepreneur or you look at Franchise Business Review. So I think starting with the brand and starting with the operating model, they're just really powerful assets. The other thing that I think really sets us apart as a franchise business and a platform business is who we're backed by, right? And who our parent company is, which is JM Family Enterprises, which is a massive $22+ billion organization. And so while a lot of the equity, franchise platform concepts that are out there have private equity investors or other different forms of capital behind them, ours is, a privately held business that's got multi-billion dollars of revenue. And so there's some ability for us to lean in differently and help drive and make investments as we need to as an organization.
So, talk about balance a little bit. You have emerging brands like Lightspeed Restoration, and then you have great brands with 900 plus franchisees like Budget Blinds. How do you balance that? I mean, are you going to be getting to 3,000 franchisees with Budget Blinds today? I mean, tell me that story.
It's a great question. When we think about investment, right, it's meeting each brand where it is in its life cycle, right? It's not really about choosing between the brands, it's finding what's right for their stage of maturity. And they're very different things. When you think about a more mature brand like Budget Blinds, we're fairly good on the model, right? Now it's about how do we evolve the product and service offerings, right? How do we go to next level capabilities when you're looking at, for example, AI that's happening in the ecosystem and how you want to use AI for visualization capabilities and other sort of new technologies. When you think about it on the contrast to some of our more startup focused brands and our younger brands like Lightspeed Restoration, it's continuing to invest in those training capabilities. It's continuing to evolve the support and operation structure ahead of when we get there so that we are absolutely ready to support our franchisees as we hit these next levels of scale and sort of broad spectrum on the footprint. And so, again, we're really just trying to tailor the investment to the right stage for each brand.
So, when it comes to, let's say, Lightspeed, continuing that theme, what is the actual playbook from taking a regional concept or a brand like Lightspeed that's emerging and make it into this sort of national dominant player like Budget Blinds?
Yeah. For us, we think about it in a couple different ways. One, when you think about just good franchising in general, it's got to be scalable and repeatable for us, right? I mean, the only way we're going to get the business to scale is if you can replicate it time and time and time again, and that it's a predictable model. So first and foremost, we really make sure we dial in the concepts and the operating procedures so that we're repeatable and predictable. That helps our franchise owners be much more efficient at operating their businesses day in and day out. I think second, and with any of these concepts, right, you have to lean into the commercials, you have to lean into marketing, you have to lean into those concepts that not only build brand awareness, but also drive lead volume, transactional volume to the franchisees so that they can be increasingly more successful in the ecosystem, right, and sort of meet their aspirations and then some for success. And then, we continue to provide additional support services. And I think that's really important as you scale because the bigger the system gets, you have to reimagine the way you deliver services at certain thresholds, right? The way you support 10 or 20 or 30 locations is very different than the way you support 900 locations. And so, we're constantly challenging the model, even for our own selves, to say, can we do this better as an organization? And in some cases, we've done wholesale redesigns on what we think our regional operations structure needs to look like. In some cases, we've introduced new technology playbooks that help drive and power different experiences. And so we're always looking for new levers to push to help drive growth, drive scale.
Semi-absentee. It's the phrase in the franchise space that gives a lot of CEOs and leadership some stress or some angst. It really is
Mm-hmm.
defined as I'm going to keep my job, I'm going to hire a manager, and I'm going to work on the business, not necessarily in the business, maybe
Yep.
10 to 20 hours a week. Is semi-absentee a real thing, or is it marketing hype alone?
I think it's the question I get so often, and I might give you a sort of provocative answer, which is, for me, I don't really care, right? And what I mean by that is this. What I'm really looking for is I'm good with somebody who wants to be an owner operator and present in the business. And very often when you're a starting franchisee and a starting entrepreneur, that's the reality that you start with. But if you want to be semi-absentee or you want to be fully absentee, that matters less to me than the individual's commitment to growth. And if they're willing to invest in the infrastructure to achieve that growth and their outcomes necessary to whether they want to be absentee, semi-absentee, or owner operator, right? If you're owner operator, you're leaning in, you're running the day to day. If you're absentee or semi-absentee, you've got to be willing to make those investments in the right general manager structure, the right management team, the right marketing team. And look, if you're willing to do that and you're willing to make that work for you and you can achieve the growth necessary to power that, by all means, right? I'm happy to support that. But that growth mindset is what I think the real unlock is, more than a particular modality of ownership engagement.
It does seem that a lot of semi-absentee focused entrepreneurs or franchisepreneurs forget the investment piece. If you're
Mhm.
keeping your job, there's an investment in your team and you have to be committed to it. It's not about just being interested in doing it.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
commitment there.
yeah, that's exactly right. I tell so many of our prospective candidates, like, fall in love with the brand, but more important, fall in love with the operating model, right? Because you're going to have to make investments at these moments along the way. And so you've got to be ready and prepared to operate that brand and know what that looks like.
I love that you just said fall in love with the brand. Let's back up a step on this. There are so many people, myself having years of experience owning franchises, and then I fell into being a franchise broker. People I talk to every day, there's always an initial reaction to certain brands like, why would I do that? I have no interest in that. And
Yeah.
my favorite story is a friend of mine who was bald, did not know how to cut hair, and ended up getting into Great Clips hair salons. And, his initial reaction was awful. Why would I do this? Well, besides from the fact that you don't know how to cut hair and you happen to be bald, it actually fits you.
Yeah.
So, your investment, your skill set, you didn't want to be stuck in the operation. You're never going to get stuck cutting someone's hair. You have no
Right.
license and knowledge on that. So, what is your advice for people on the fence thinking, how do I sort through these brands? Just with you, between AdvantaClean and Aussie Pet Mobile and Bath and Kitchen Tune-Up and Lightspeed and PremierGarage and Tailored Closet and two Maids, you have a wide variety of options. Do you have prospects come to you and then sometimes you jump them around to other brands that might be better suited for them?
Yeah, all the time, right? That's the normal process of discovery that we go through, particularly as a platform business. You asked me what's the piece of advice for a potential franchisee. I would say be open. Be open and curious about what each of the concepts and each of the brands has to offer. Because you may come to a platform concept like home franchise concepts where we have 10 brands thinking, I am really fixated on this idea or this brand, or I love the concept of that. And what you may find is you have a unique, as we all do, composition of skills and experiences that may, in fact, lead you to be more qualified or more successful, the important part, operating this concept instead, right? And so we oftentimes have conversations with prospective franchisees that come to us saying, I really want X. And as we go through the discovery process and really listen and really try to sort out what are you aspiring to do as a franchisee, we can give 2, 3, 4 options of you might also consider brand A, brand B, brand C, right? Whatever that right fit for them is, because of their background, because of their experience. So really just be open. I always encourage that when we do our Meet the Team days, be open, be curious, ask questions, because you may surprise yourself on where you go, like your friend who was bald and ended up in a haircutting business, right?
So, your best multi-unit franchisees that are multimillionaires by now, what do they do that others do not? What is sort of their secret, not so secret to success?
I wish there was some beautiful secret about this or some revolutionary thing I could share with you. But I think our best franchisees recognize how franchising works and they believe and follow the model, right? So it starts with they follow the operating playbook to a T, right? They keep themselves in good compliance, they follow the operating systems, they follow the sales process, they make the necessary investments in terms of both at a national level with us and at a local level on their own. And so we're really focused on operating the model well. I think the second thing that they do is they partner, back to that partnership word, with us from an innovation standpoint, right? They take the time to sit on our franchise advisory councils. They take the time to provide us constant feedback on here's what's working in the marketplace. Here's where I'm running into challenges. Can you help me think through this a bit? And so that partnership helps us evolve as an organization and become better and stronger every single day. And then I think the third thing that they do, they are expert networkers. Like they use the power of the franchise network to their fullest advantage and to gain additional insights, right? If they are seeing early signs of, hey, something looks different about this in my market, are you also seeing that? Hey, I am seeing that as well. Great, let's come together and figure out a way to solve this. They are just great at collaborating and communicating with each other. And I think those are the three things that really set apart some of our best franchise owners.
You brought up something so valuable that a lot of our listeners might not even know exists. They know they're going to get some sort of great training, or at least they hope they're going to. Certainly will with home franchise concepts. And a lot of people forget or are unaware of the power of the collaboration within franchisees and that
Mm-hmm.
mastermind effect that franchising, it's a natural in franchising. It's
Yeah.
everybody's non-competitive. You have your own territories. When I was a franchisee at Wingstop and I happened to be president of the Franchise Advisory Council, I get calls from the VP of marketing from corporate saying, hey, we got a guy in Idaho that's struggling. Can you help him? Well,
Yeah.
you know what that meant if they're calling me. That meant that the training team is already almost exhausted all options. Now I have to talk peer to peer to this guy to make him, see the light because clearly there's something he's stumbled on.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing more powerful than that mastermind effect that franchising gives for free, when you're a member. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's part of being in the greater good of the franchise community, right? I mean, the best franchisees, I think, both contribute to that and they're willing to share their experiences and their advice and receive from that as well, right? They're willing to listen, to be curious, and to get that feedback back from their peer group.
Yep. Giver's gain. That's an old expression a friend of mine taught. Giver's gain. So
Exactly.
let's, I had a great mom and daughter combo on my podcast not that long ago,
Yeah.
and they were in kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up. So they've already expanded and have both. I would imagine you're now having quite a few franchisees that own a couple of different brands. Is that correct these days?
We do have a few that own multiple brands, and that's certainly a possibility, right? What we kind of see franchise maturity and scale happen in two directions. You tend to come into the system with a territory or two, and then we tend to see our franchise owners grow and scale by going deeper and deeper in the concept they started with, right? So becoming multi-unit owners inside of a single brand. We do have examples where people will then sort of expand beyond that. To your point, the kitchen tune-up and bath tune-up, they are very complementary models, and so it's a natural extension to move from one to the others. And so we do have sort of that vertical expansion and then that horizontal expansion happening as well throughout the system.
So Lightspeed, if you're looking at any of the brands, we can't highlight every one of them today.
Yeah.
But Lightspeed, it's in a great industry. Restoration, everybody knows, is a needed business. You can't control what Mother Nature does or where water flows all the time. And so talk a little bit about where you are with Lightspeed and the message for the audience on why you should be looking at Lightspeed these days.
I mean, to your point, first and foremost, it is a massive market. When you take a look at it in terms of addressable market based on the services that we offer from a Lightspeed standpoint, it is measured in multiple tens of billions of dollars. It is an enormous market. I think too, what's really interesting, there are some large scale players in the space, but it is still a very, very fragmented space for us. And so, large market plus fragmentation is like the perfect recipe and combination for bring a franchise concept to bear there, right? And be able to create scale and presence at a national level to go ahead and attract market share ultimately. And so I think those are great sort of market dynamics. To your point, it is a necessary service, right? You cannot control Mother Nature. You cannot control, the things that will happen as a result from that. And so people are in a moment where, look, they have to buy, right? They have to solve this. And so I think that's a really exciting reality in the sense of, look, we care for your home on the day-to-day and doing kitchen and bath tune-ups. We also care for it in a moment where you just need certainty and surety and some peace of mind. And so we love that about the restoration space. We're really excited about what Lightspeed represents for us because, it is a 24/7 model. It is partnered and we're gaining an incredible foothold with some local regional insurance providers so that we've got clear referral pathways, as well as the independent buyers that are just, out searching on their own. And so, we're really starting to see some great traction and momentum on that brand. So we're excited about what it can bring in the future.
And I got into brands when they were quite young. So that's my message for the audience. You wait for an older brand. I had somebody ask me about Wingstop the other day and I laughed. I tried not to laugh, but I'm like, wait a second. I got into Wingstop 22 years ago. So I don't know where you were. If you wait too long, you're not going to get territory. So final thoughts, final words of wisdom, Corey, for first-time business owners, people on the fence, looking at franchises, looking at acquisitions, maybe waiting for years, looking for that perfect acquisition. I explain that time is money, but in your own words, what's your advice for folks?
Well, my first advice is don't wait. I know so many franchisees and entrepreneurs who, were worried about the certainty of, oh my gosh, I'm going to leave behind my day-to-day, and yet so frustrated with that grind and the daily frustration of, not having control of their destiny and wanting and hungry for a different reality and wanting to create their own future. So there is no better time than the present to go ahead and take the leap, right? 2, as I said at the beginning, be curious, be open to different franchise concepts, love the brand, more importantly, love the operating model, because that's what's going to help drive your profitability and success. And 3, I'd advocate for franchising. I think it's a great concept. I think it brings proven models, and more importantly, it brings support from the franchisor in terms of training and ongoing coaching and marketing. It also brings support from your peers from a collaboration, best practices standpoint. So do it now, do it through franchising, because you've got a great network of franchisees around you.
Perfect way to leave it. Corey, Home Franchise Concepts, thank you so much for being an awesome guest, my friend.
Appreciate it, Lance. Appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.